Hi, everyone. I'm Summer,
I'm Carrie.
and this is Hopelexia Podcast.
Join us to talk about sex, drugs, and self-improvement.
Wow.
God.
It's a wonder I'm not a
Holy
psychopath.
shit! You never told me that story.
Yeah, I just
Well,
remembered it
and
last
that's the
night. I
thing,
was like, I
right?
don't think I ever told Lilith this one.
I,
No,
we're
you didn't.
demonstrating that if trauma was what created psychopathy, you would never have.
Exactly. Right.
You would.
And that's the thing, right? Like,
Wow.
you
Yeah,
can't make somebody be that way, right? Like,
Right.
yeah,
you can't rewire somebody's body so they physically feel less pain. You can't rewire somebody's body so they have, you know, less access to their emotions physically, right? I mean, this is a neurological condition, right? It is not psychological. You i mean quite i mean you just you can't create psychopathy in a person. I mean, I guess quite technically speaking, it would be sociopathy anyway if you created it, because then that means it came from the environment. I mean, just from a
true.
linguistic standpoint, right? Socio
Yeah,
meaning coming from society, from the environment, right? I mean, the little Monty Python sketch, right? Like, society made me do it. Oh, all right, I'll go to arrest them then. Right? But yeah, I mean, that's so. Oh man, this is really fucking hard to hear. Um,
yeah,
I mean, like, just like, that's hard to hear that happened to anybody. You know what I mean? But like,
yeah,
like, I personally know you. I love you. Like,
yeah,
what the fuck?
yeah.
Like,
That's fucked up.
oh,
It's fucked up. And if any of us were gonna be fucked up, it was gonna be because of stuff like that.
mhm.
It's like
Oh yeah.
the straw that broke the camel's back was that night that he came home and
Yeah.
he was drunk and high on his own stuff and
Oh, do we want to explain what so for whatever reason, my audio's been kind of cutting out here and there, so I'm not sure. Did we talk about the chemistry information? Because if not, we
not
probably
yet,
will
not
go
yet.
in.
So
Okay, well, this is perfect.
yeah,
So
so
when we
yes,
say that our dad was brilliant, dude literally woke up one day and went, you know what? I really want to be able to make my own methamphetamines. I'm going to teach myself chemistry. And he did, and he went and became a chemist and got a job as a chemist in an actual laboratory.
that
Like,
is still
woke up
working
one morning.
today.
Yeah, it is still working today. We were just looking at it. It's going to remain nameless. The location will remain nameless, but
Yeah,
the chemistry laboratory is still an operational facility as we speak right this moment.
yeah, still in
Also,
operation.
so he
Yeah,
just
so that's
woke
when he
up
came
and said,
home
"I want
drunk
to
and
make my own
high.
meth."
Yeah, so that may have been the case. He was like, he was looking for ways to make money and he was like, well, chemists get paid really good money, and so I'm gonna go become a chemist. And so he had built the garage in our backyard and created a little room up above the garage. It's a gigantic garage. Um, and he had study books up there and he'd study all the time and do all this stuff. And then he went out and got this job and he was working long hours at this chemistry laboratory. And, come to find out later that he was moonlighting and making his own drugs at the laboratory. And so one night he comes home, and at this point he had been making really good money and started like bringing home gifts for the kids and stuff. Like, he brought us home a Sega Genesis a couple of months before this, and so we had a Sega, and we were like, "This is cool. We got a Sega, man, and we're playing video games, and this is great." And so life seemed like it was being better. We there wasn't so much conflict. He wasn't doing the kind of crazy sadistic shit that he normally did. Along the lines of, "Hey, you boys are acting up. Why don't you guys go lay down on the floor right next to each other? And I'm going to go grab this leather strop that we have just hanging up next to next to the kitchen, and I'm going to start snapping it like the old leather belts. But this thing was, it was 2 layers for as like a barber strap for their razor blades, and he'd snap it and make us, think that he's going to come over and whip the shit out of us. And sometimes he would, and sometimes he'd just walk around with the threat of it and like hit the ground next to us instead of hitting us and stuff like that, because we were being bad. I know, right? And so this one night he comes home, he's got steaks. He got New York steaks, and he's like, I'm grilling steaks. I feel like steaks. And he's got some beers, and he's outside, and he's cooking, and he brings these steaks in, and we're all sitting down at the kids' table, and he's trying to have dinner with us. He's sitting at the kids' table with us, and he's cutting up the steak for our little brother, and my little brother doesn't want to eat the fatty parts of the steak, and my dad's like, well, the fatty part's where all the flavor is, and you should eat this. And my little brother's like, no, I'm not going to eat it. So my dad cuts a piece and puts some potatoes on it and stuff like that, and he puts the fork right in front of Zach's face, and he's like, eat it. And Zach closes his mouth, as a typical 5-6-year-old will, and turns his head and goes, mm-mm, mm-mm. And my dad's like, eat it. And he starts getting really angry. And my brother's like, no, I'm not going to eat it. I don't want to eat it. So my dad takes the steak knife that he had, and he puts it right up against my little brother's belly. And he says, if you don't eat it, I'm going to stab you. And that was enough for my mom. My mom came over and grabbed the knife and disarmed him, and like did this little 3-point shot back over her head, and 20 feet to the kitchen sink, and makes it in the sink, which to this day I'm like, damn, good shot. And because she wasn't even looking, she just tossed it, and pulls his chair over backwards, and she starts screaming at him, get the fuck out of my house, blah blah blah, all this other stuff.
Good
and
for her.
Exactly. And the last thing I remember ever hearing from my dad as he's walking out the door is, what are you, the Queen of Sheba? And walks out, slams the back door. And that was it. That's the last time I ever saw my dad.
Why? That's so funny to me.
I know, right? What are you, the Queen of Sheba? You're like, I don't even get the reference.
Right?
Like, I'll go. You just kick my ass, but I'm still gonna insult you as I'm going because fuck you.
Yeah.
Gotta get the last word.
Exactly. Yeah. And then,
Exactly.
Exactly. And so then from that point forward, it was, we went and packed up and we went to our grandma's house. And the police came, and my mom did a restraining order, and they picked Dad up, and they were like,
no. Becca told me, I heard that was a little bit different. And I mean, she's what? So was she a year older than you? Or
no, she's 3 years older than us.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So
Yeah.
she's like in that particular, like, that's actually a significant age
Yes,
gap.
at that point. Yeah, absolutely.
At that point, yeah.
Yeah.
And so what she said was your mom had actually, like, this had been, and this is like, by the way, like, this is, if you are someone who is watching right now and you are living with somebody like our father, please do exactly the fuck as his mother did, because this is how you do it. She had all of her ducks in a row. She had all of the paperwork for the restraining order filled out. Like, she had done every single thing that she needed to do so that the very next time there was a violent incident like that, bam, fucking done.
Yeah.
Right. So everything got filed. So it is really, really, really important for everybody's safety, especially if you've got, kids. I mean, obviously, put on your own oxygen mask and first and all that, but like, in a situation like that, where you've got somebody who's this kind of volatile, who will, I'm never gonna see Sweeney Todd the same again, which is actually really sort of ironic. But like the whole thing with the
strap,
barber strap, right?
Strap.
Like,
yeah.
Now you took the joy out of the barber strap
And what's funny is I still
Now.
use strops. I love knives. I do all that stuff. Like like, yeah, it was
Really?
fucked up as kids, but yeah, I'm like, whatever.
Wow, that's
Compartmentalize and,
fascinating. You
shove that
still.
shit down.
Keep moving.
Right.
Oh my
Sounds
God.
healthy.
I know, right? It's very helping.
But yeah, so
Gotta
anyway, so
cope while
what?
you can.
Oh man, compartmentalize and dissociate. Woohoo!
Woohoo!
Yeah, I'm happy. What are you talking about?
I'm fine. I'm
You make it sound
fine.
like it's a bad thing. God, I
But
know,
that
right?
is,
So,
but realistically, that is something that we do talk about a lot with families who are
Hmm.
dealing with, especially like raising these kids.
Yeah.
Is you can't really stop and unpack all that while you're still trying to survive. So being
No.
able to
no,
do that is an important survival skill.
it
Oh
is.
yeah.
It is. Otherwise, the microevolution, it's a thing, and as far as like survival and figuring out how to live in life and not be scarred from things like that, it's important for the brain to do that, and it's natural.
Well,
So,
and I think the other thing too is what we're all doing right here, right? Is humor. You must develop gallows humor if you're going to get through this intact.
100%,
I
100%. Yeah.
mean, if you don't learn how to laugh at this stuff and have a sense of humor about it, you're going to lose your damn mind. And I mean that literally, right? Like
Yeah.
I'm not. You will end up going, bibbledy like the reavers at the edge of space and hope
Yeah.
nobody's watched Serenity but like the four of us, right? Like
Oh, there's a lot of people. It was a fancy
I
show.
know
Everybody loved that shit.
I know it was just it was a cult reference, so I was
It's a good
obviously
one though.
one for of us. Oh,
It's
so
okay.
amazing.
If they don't know, they can Google it.
Yeah, and they'll watch it and they'll
Yeah,
realize they love it. It's fine.
you'd be like, it's amazing. It's that.
Be
But you
great.
know what? Actually, that's really interesting because spoiler for anybody who maybe doesn't want to hear this part, but like the whole way. Okay, I'm trying to phrase this in a way that I don't totally spoiler it, but I do think it was really it is a little bit interesting that the Reavers come from that 10% of people who sort of had the ab reaction to the thing,
Yeah,
right? And
yeah,
that's where that came from. So that actually maybe a little prescient from Joss Whedon's perspective, or on his part rather.
probably so. Probably
Like,
so.
I mean, is it
So,
is it actually 10%? I think it might be.
Something like that. Yeah, it was like, hey, they had an adverse reaction to this thing. Everybody else died. These people just became insane.
Yep.
Like
Well, and not just insane, but
anti-vaxxers.
but it's the sadistic part, right? I mean,
Yeah,
that was where I mean, I actually wonder now. I mean, and this is, by the way, like a super healthy curiosity about like this really weird shit. Like this will also help get you through, right? So the thing I was about to ask is, oh, I wonder what percentage of the population actually does have sadism, and how would we measure that? So my brain
right?
starts kind of, but I mean, it is kind of important, right? Because we say this is rare, but it's only rare in the
Relative to
ones.
what?
Right.
Right. Well,
fair.
and a
Yeah,
friend of mine once said that, jail isn't full of criminals. Jail is full of criminals who were stupid enough to get caught,
That works.
which I mean is not necessarily wrong. So, how many other people out there who have? I mean, so actually, this is a really good time to, and we didn't put this in our notes, but um, when thinking, and well, this will probably, anybody who understands anything about psychopathy, this will be like zero fucking shock. But given the history that you've already heard, you'll be like, yeah, of course. But I mean, obviously, I'm not qualified to diagnose anybody with psychopathy or administer the PCLR or any of that stuff. But given the givens, I think our dad would have scored either a 40 out of 40 or a prorated 38 out of 38 on the PCLR. The only reason being that there was no revocation of conditional release because he never got caught. Right.
Well, so I mean, he did with the whole kid thing, but then he also got the opportunity because they asked my mom. They said, "Well, what do you want to do?" And
Right.
she's like, "Well, I need to support these 4 kids, so let him out so he can work, so that he can support these 4 kids." So instead of throwing his ass in the slammer, he got the opportunity to get released so that he could support his family, and then disappeared off the face of the planet.
Right.
Sounds about right.
That's right.
Of course.
Yep.
Although I don't, it's really like, I can't believe I'm about to say this, but I would say I don't necessarily know that I would count that because he wasn't arrested. I mean, yes, domestic violence is technically a crime, but like he only did that only happened because your mom had so brilliantly, set all her ducks up in a row,
Yeah.
as opposed to like he wasn't in the system. He wasn't like a known drug dealer or a known felon or a known anything. Like nobody in the system was smart enough to catch him. It was your
No.
mom that was like, I'm going to get all of this stuff
Yeah.
in there, right? And so he was kind of off there, really.
He was off
At
the
that
radar for
point,
sure.
yeah, exactly. Like he's out
If
there
they,
cooking fucking crystal
yeah,
meth, and
yeah.
nobody has any idea.
And if they had dug, at that point and were like throwing the book at him and doing that, it would have come up in discovery, you would imagine, because they would go to the facility, they would see what he was doing, they'd be like, oh God, this guy this guy that. Maybe he would have been smart enough to dodge most of that and only spend 6 months to a year and then get out and do stuff like that. Who knows? Because I don't know what the time frame was there in the 90s, and or what the laws were, or what all of the criminality charges and the time spent and all that other stuff. But the fact was he got off easy because of the hope that he would be there to support his family and work and do stuff like that. And nope, that's it. Yeah, he was gone. And then like we came home one day, there was a skateboard for me, there was a basketball for Alex, and apparently he had been outside the elementary school, and my little brother saw him, and like he waved at him, and then my little brother like scuttled home and was like really traumatized. He was like, "Oh my God, I saw Dad," blah blah blah. And but he was the only one that saw him in the interim, and then until he just like vanished off of the face of the earth. Come to find out that he was 30 miles away in Elizabeth, Colorado, shacking up with some girl, using drugs a lot, had died of who knows what. It was a heart attack. He had tumors all up in his back and stuff, and enlarged heart. Yeah, all the drug use. Yep, lots of shit in the system. Chronic alcohol abuse.
Yeah, I'm all for palliative care, but pretty sure that cocaine is not like, you're not doing coke on your deathbed because it takes away the.
No, it's not for pain, it's for fun.
I mean, maybe his nose hurt. Maybe.
He probably just liked the smell. I don't know.
It's really interesting though.
More gallows humor.
You said something that's really you said something that I think is really, really important to highlight here. You said that he was given this chance because, gosh darn it, he needed to provide for his family and be a father and all of this stuff. But sometimes the best thing a parent can do is go the fuck away and never come back.
Yeah.
Right? Like, there are so many, and I'm not, obviously, spoiler alert, I'm big on the redemption story arcs, and I absolutely believe in redemption, right? But
absolutely,
like, sometimes there is this, Often there is this like parental blindness that the system has, right? Where they're gonna be plucky like we're gonna turn them around. So we're just gonna give you a second chance and a third chance and a fourth chance and a 15th chance. And you're by gosh, you're gonna do right by these kids one day, right? And you're just like, no,
Yeah.
just make them go away and stop letting them traumatize us. Please. Thank you very much.
It would have been more helpful, and it was helpful for us.
Right.
Yeah. I
So
mean, you can't.
Jazz.
Oh, I was just saying, you can't begin to heal from the thing if the thing is still happening.
Right.
Yeah, true.
Absolutely. So we've been covering the background, the lived experience for context, but you mentioned the how much more nature, how much the role that nature has. So can you give us some examples of that?
Oh, yes, we have notes. Real quick
Yay.
before I forget, you said
Okay.
something that you guys were sitting at the kid. Like, did you guys just have a kids table in the
Yes.
house at all times? Was that
Yep.
like I'm trying to find fuck tact. Was that because you needed to have a kids table because you were children and were not fit to sit at the same table as your parents, or was it legit like a space thing that made ergonomic sense or whatever?
It was right outside of the kitchen, so it was easier for my mom to just bring us food. And so
Okay.
there was the big table that the parents that the adults would sit at, and then but the big table and the chairs were too high for the kids. So we had a little a little
Okay.
shorter table. It had a little plastic covering on it, and I think it was ladybugs. It was red with like little ladybugs on it.
Gotcha.
And
Had
then
one that was
four
miniature
chairs for
too.
the kids to sit at. So yeah, it was just the kids table where we sat to eat because it was easier to clean up. It was easier to bring food to us, and it was actually more functional for us to eat at instead of having to like kneel on the chairs to eat the food at the big table because we just weren't quite big enough to do that.
Mine
Gotcha.
was
So
Winnie
it's
the Pooh.
functional,
It
not
was a little wood
punitive.
table. It was so cute.
I can never tell with I can never tell when something was practical or abusive in your house.
Truth.
There may also be some overlap.
Yeah.
There could have been a little disdain. Well, the kids don't get to sit at the adults table. There has to be a delineation here.
I mean, and that's actually that's really interesting. So I remember in oh God, what's his name? David Wood. Who, by the way, I totally apologize, you guys. He bludgeoned his father to death with a claw hammer when he was 18, not 15. I apologize for that earlier misinformation. But one of the things, and I actually went and tried to find on his YouTube channel. I tried to find some of those old like references to parenting videos, but most of his stuff is discussing Christianity and Islam, and I couldn't find it. But one of the things that I remember in one of the videos of his that I watched is because people will reach out to him and be like, what should I do if I have a child like you? And one of the things he actually said was, I mean, a little bit of that, cut them down to size, remind them that they ain't shit, right? Like, make sure, because they're going to walk around like, I'm better than everybody, right? And so he said it, remind them that they aren't. And so I think, I mean, probably for people who don't have children like that, don't go around telling your kids they ain't shit. Like, that's not good. But I mean, sometimes you need to, you know, sometimes you need to knock them down a little peg. And I'm just gonna tell the story anyway, and I don't care. I mean, people are gonna say whatever the fuck they're gonna say. But So my kid was in acting for a while, and there was a movie being filmed across the street from our house at one point, which we had nothing to do with. But anyway, they're filming, and it was like, oh man, I don't remember who it was or what movie it was, but it was like one of the really, really, really big name, like big name stars, right? Like huge freaking deal. And they were filming, and kids like, trying to peek in and see what's going on. And then, one of the PAs or the grips or, whatever is like, oh, okay, we need to start filming. So you need to clear the area. And immediately my kid's like, well, I do this too. I mean, it was just like that. Do you have any idea who I am? Sort of posture, right? And then he's like, well, I'm an actor and I do this too. I was in, what was I in, Mom? Like he couldn't even remember. Like he's trying to posture and he can't even remember. He totally. I love though that he thinks Mom's gonna back him up. And I just looked at him and I went, boy, you ain't shit. And he was just like, what? And I was like, you were a little, bit day player for a freaking Ron Howard pilot, and your scene didn't even get included. Don't you be walking around like, and you were fucking Taft Hartley, like you didn't even have a fucking line. Like I just went off on him. Like if you really knew, right? If you really were an actor and understood all this, you would understand that you need to get out of the way when they need to film, right? Like you would not be puffing up your. He was just like, oh, it's like, Mom, that was really mean. And I was like, yeah, but don't you be walking around here like you think, you're some like massive star when you are not. Like, oh, hell no. But I will tell you, he never pulled that shit again. He never pulled that again, but he just was like, whoa, what the hell? And so, of course, now everybody's going to be like, wow, no wonder that child ended up that way if he had a mother who talked to him like that. And why did I go off on right, the thing about the tables, because the kids' tables, and, sometimes that might be like the abusiveness and the practicality, right? Like I would never say something like that to a normal child, right? It was just like that little, did it the one time, never did it again, right? It was one of those in the moment things, but it worked. Like it stopped that overinflated, egotistical thing where he was just walking around like, I'm the king of the fucking universe, which, by the way, let's just, as a brief aside, Hollywood is the worst place for that character trait. Oh my God, do they enable the fuck out of that?
It's amplified.
Yeah, massively amplified. Oh, right. So you were asking about and this is perfect, actually perfect segue.
Well, real
Environment.
quick, can I add something to what you just said about your parenting strategy with him?
Nature and nurture?
Was the one thing, because I've had can you hear me? I don't think Lily can hear me.
I can hear you.
Okay. Is that
I've
had a lot of people, since we've been doing these videos, I have a lot of people asking like what my parenting advice is for parents who have children like mine. And the first thing I say is you have to accept honestly the child you have. Parent the child you have. You cannot treat these children the same way that you treat children with other, neurology. You just can't. The response is it's just not going to work. And you're going to escalate the situation, and it's going to become dangerous much more quickly. You have to parent the child you have, not the child you wish you had. And sometimes to people on the outside,
I mean, and
that
that's
does look, shocking or outrageous, but it is what it is.
Yeah, it's great advice.
right. Right. Yeah. I mean, and
And
that's I love the way you phrase that, by the way. I mean, I give well, so here's something that's really interesting, right? You and I ended up at the exact same strategy, worlds apart, right? Like when you came to parents of children with conduct disorder, like you had already figured out all the shit that I would have taught you, right? So like you came to those same conclusions. And I love the way that you phrase that, right? Parent the child you have. I mean, I get a little more, nerdy and scientific, right? Which is you have to like, and Ben and I were talking about this last night when we talk about epigenetics, right? Epigenetics like literally translates roughly as literally roughly. Wow. Okay. Yay. Anyway, but it translates as on top of genetics, right? And I mean, it's sort of like, on top of Old Smoky, you got to have Old Smoky to have something on top of Old Smoky, right? Like you have to have the thing underneath the thing before, like it matters. The effect that an environment is going to have on a thing depends on very much on what the thing is, right? Like it's gonna be very, very different depending on, you know, like if you try to heat ice, it's going to turn into liquid, but if you try to heat liquid, it's going to turn into a gas, right? Like it matters what the thing is before you start trying to figure out how the environment's going to affect it. And I mean, you're so right. You can't, I mean, like I said, I would never have said anything like that to another child, but given the givens, right? Like you have to parent the child you have, not the child you wish you had, right? Like it's not, you can't.
Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. And to be sure you never miss an upload, make sure you turn your notifications on. And please come join us on social media so we can continue these conversations in between episodes. You'll find us at Hypoxia Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok.